evening. Welcome to the news desk. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's not FQM. Apologies for that. Let's take a read at the headlines this evening. Robert Prevost elected as first American Pope and takes the name Leo the 14th. U.S. withdraws $50 million annual health aid to Zambia over rampant theft of ARVs and anti-malaria drugs. Court finds Jay Banda's wife, police and correctional officers with case to answer over aiding escape from custody.
News Desk at 8 with Justin Mulenga.
Good evening once again. Thank you for joining us on the News Desk. Let's begin with the first news item. The United States has cut $50 million, approximately 1.4 billion kwacha, in annual health aid to Zambia, citing the government's failure to curb widespread theft of medical supplies, including life-saving antiretroviral and anti-malaria drugs. U.S. Ambassador to Zambia, Michael Gonzalez, announced the decision during a press briefing in Lusaka today. He said Washington had spent over a year urging Zambian authorities to take decisive action against what he described as a systematic and countrywide diversion of donated drugs meant to be distributed free to the public. Mr. Gonzalez revealed that investigations began in 2021 when the U.S. government uncovered extensive evidence of misappropriation. Meanwhile, Zambia's Minister of Health, Elijah Muchima, described the development as a diplomatic matter, adding that the government would respond in due course.
It breaks my heart. But I also have a duty to the American people, to the American taxpayer, to safeguard and ensure the good use of these resources. I've bent over backwards doing everything I know how to do to prevent this, to partner or have tried to partner with authorities to respond.
In a major development, the United States has withdrawn $50 million, approximately 1.4 billion kwacha, in annual aid to Zambia's Ministry of Health. The decision follows the government's failure to respond to what the U.S. has described as a systemic theft of life-saving medicines, including antiretrovirals and anti-malaria drugs.
That's 1.4 billion kwacha in annual aid to Zambia provided for medications and medical supplies. For more than 1 year, the government of the United States has requested tangible action from the government of Zambia to respond to the countrywide systematic theft of these products provided by the United States. Shockingly, across these visits, 95% of the pharmacies that were selling the kinds of products that the United States provides were also selling stolen goods. I have stressed repeatedly that the accountable safeguarding of American taxpayer funds will require the United States to significantly reduce our contribution of medicines and medical supplies if meaningful action is not taken to hold high-level culprits responsible and to stop that theft. I have messaged that consistently at very senior levels since October. After more than 1 year of little tangible action by Zambian authorities to address this systematic theft of U.S.-provided health support, the United States can no longer justify to the American taxpayer continuing to provide massive levels of assistance.
The decision has drawn strong reactions from civil society and political leaders.
We call upon President Hakainde Hichilema's administration to clean up the Ministry of Health without fear or favor or looking at either tribal lines or whatever, to make sure that the ministry is clean up. We appeal to government to suspending all those involved in these corrupt practices at the Ministry of Health.
And Gordon Party leader Jackson Silavwe has also weighed in, urging the U.S. government to reconsider the aid cut.
We are of the view that the United States should reconsider its decision to cut $50 million in aid to the Ministry of Health of Zambia. Inasmuch as we agree that widespread theft of life-saving medicines must be stopped immediately by the government.
Meanwhile, Professor Wilbrod Mutale, Chief Executive Officer of Teledoctor, has stressed that this is not a simple issue, but one that touches directly on the health of ordinary Zambians.
This issue of taking away $50 million is not a simple issue. It is bordering on the health and lives of our people. So you can like it, maybe you want to politic, you want to say maybe people are complaining, and I think that that's not what we wanted to do. Like, we are not children. We are all adults in here, in this country. We know how things work. And so such a news should not be taken lightly, actually. It needs to be taken seriously by the power that be, but also for the doctors, the nurses, all the health people that have been running this ministry.
In a statement, Kanchibia Member of Parliament Sande Chanda has echoed the concerns, stating that government should not treat the development as a diplomatic embarrassment, but rather as an opportunity to confront corruption head-on within the health sector. When contacted for a response, Health Minister Elijah Muchima has described the matter as diplomatic in nature, stating that the government will issue an official statement in due course. Rachel Mumba for Diamond News.
In more news, President Hakainde Hichilema has called for increased trade among African countries, describing it as a key driver for the country's development. Speaking at the ongoing Africa Continental Free Trade Area Digital Trade Forum in Lusaka, President Hichilema said Africa has waited too long for external support, which has yielded limited results. He stressed that shifting global dynamics and declining foreign aid should serve as a wake-up call for African nations to seize new opportunities and strengthen intra-African trade. The president questioned why African countries continue to trade minimally among themselves while spending billions of dollars importing goods from outside the continent. Meanwhile, Botswana's President Duma Gideon Boko urged African leaders to move beyond rhetoric and transform the AFCFTA agreement into a practical tool for empowerment and tangible improvement in the lives of African citizens.
The African Continental Free Trade Area Digital Trade Forum has kicked off in Lusaka, attracting delegates from across the African continent. African leaders are sending a clear and urgent message. It's time for the continent to trade with itself and stop relying on the outside world. Zambia's Republican President, Hakainde Hichilema, who officially opened the meeting, has not minced words but told delegates that Africa has waited too long for external support and has little to show for it.
We can complain about ARVs not being paid for by other taxpayers outside Africa. Yes, we can complain about development assistance shrinking. I actually think that this is a wake-up call to Africa, that we've been doing things wrongly for too many years, waiting for someone to do mundane things for us. We must do those things ourselves.
Botswana's President Duma Boko has echoed the same sentiments, urging leaders to move beyond political talk and put the trade deal to work for ordinary Africans.
I call upon others across the African continent, those who sit at the highest echelons of leadership in their countries, to transcend words, move to action, and ensure that we translate this Africa Free Trade Agreement into a platform for meaningful empowerment, and transformation of the lives of our people.
Despite having a combined market of over 1.3 billion people, African nations still trade more with Europe and Asia than with each other. Leaders here say that must change.
Intra-Africa trade is only 16% within ourselves. 84% Africa trades with the rest of the world at its own expense.
We must transition from being a continent of potential to being a continent of reality, of opportunities for our private sector, for our young people, for SMEs.
Boosting digital trade is not a luxury, but a necessity. It is central to the success of the AfCFTA and to Africa's future.
An Africa where trade is digital, dynamic, and finally delivers the long-awaited promise of a shared prosperity for all.
And Rwanda's Minister of Trade, Prudence Sibahizi, highlighted the need to break down regulatory barriers and unify markets to unleash Africa's digital economy.
AI may replace more than 300 million jobs globally, which represent 9.1% of all jobs globally. Africa faces a defining choice: to lead in the digital revolution or to lag behind.
The message from Lusaka is loud and clear. Africa's future depends on Africans doing business with each other, and the African Continental Free Trade Area might just be the key to making that future a reality. Prudence Chota for Diamond News.
In more news, Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost of the United States has been elected the 267th Pope and has stepped onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica as the new leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics. He is now known as Pope Leo the 14th. Prevost, age 69, from Chicago, Illinois, is the first ever Pope from the United States. Cardinals took 2 days to select a new pontiff, matching the timeline from the previous two gatherings and suggesting that Prevost quickly impressed his peers during the secretive process. Francis and Benedict XVI were both revealed in the evening of the conclave's second day, while John Paul II, the longest reigning pope of modern times, was elected on the third day in 1978.
Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum. Habemus papam. Eminentissimum, ac reverendissimum Dominum, Dominum Robertum Franciscum, Sancte Romane Ecclesiae, Cardinalem Prevost, qui sibi nomen imposuit Leonem XIV.
We take our first break, and when we get back, we do have the business news update coming up. But for now, I leave you with the Diamond Insight. This is your Diamond Insight on the U.S. government's withdrawal of $50 million health sector funding. The decision by the United States to cut $50 million in medical aid to Zambia is not just a diplomatic rebuke, it is a damning indictment of our nation's governance, accountability, and political will. For over a year, the U.S. Embassy has been ringing alarm bells about the systematic theft of life-saving medicines meant for the most vulnerable Zambians. The findings are staggering. Nearly half of the pharmacies investigated were selling stolen drugs, including antiretrovirals, meant to be distributed for free. And what was the government's response? Repeated meetings, hollow reassurances, and still no decisive action. This is a national disgrace. We, the people of Zambia, owe it to ourselves to ask, who is protecting the thieves? Why has no one been held accountable? How can a government that claims to care for its people allow life-saving medicines to be looted from public hands into private profit? The aid being withdrawn is not just money. It is the oxygen of our public health system. It means fewer drugs for HIV, TB, and malaria. It means a reversal of hard-won gains in epidemic control. And it means ordinary Zambians will pay the price for a culture of impunity and negligence that thrives in the corridors of power. The U.S. is not the villain here. The real betrayal lies within, in the failure of our institution to protect the people they serve. This should be a turning point. The Zambian government must urgently move beyond rhetoric, launch transparent investigations, prosecute offenders regardless of rank, and rebuild a health system that delivers for the people, not for cartels and cronies. Anything less is not just political failure, it is a moral one, and the Zambian people deserve better.
Business News is brought to you by Zambia Industrial Commercial Bank. Zambia Industrial Commercial Bank, making tomorrow possible.
You're watching the Diamond News Desk at 8. My name is Sepu Ngoma. I'll be running you through the stories that are making business headlines this evening. We'll start off with Livingston's cassia vegetable farming revitalized. And later on, scrap metal dealers decry victimization amid anti-vandalism crackdown. We'll also look at the money markets and see the commodity prices as we close off our business later on. Do stay tuned. Let's take a look at the business news in details. A government-supported initiative in Livingston District, southern Zambia, has revitalized irrigation activities that have previously ceased due to insufficient rainfall. The government has facilitated the capture and storage of water from a local stream following recent rains in Cassia Ward. Beneficiaries have expressed gratitude, saying their crops and livestock will benefit from this initiative.
The recent rainfall has brought hope to the nearly failing irrigation farming, which is the primary source of livelihood in Cassia Ward, southern Zambia. This improvement is thanks to a government initiative to collect water at specific points to support ongoing agricultural livestock activities.
Manzi atake kuvura manzi muntu muchidamu ichi kuti mwindi ndiza magardening atwa maenda tanofamba ni kumana magardening totora mbere kunolima magarden.
Although locals believe the water supply would not last more than 2 months, they greatly appreciate the effort.
Manzi tali kukala kaboto so the government ngazete project tegwa ndiza mwindi manzi anokala kala mukati omu
tupa magadi katukonza kulima akuja na woto
kuti turi kukumbira limi ku government kwamba uti yatwetera limi chitipo mukwitira kuti wakokora da imuse wolomu kwitira kuti andiza manzi anotutondora kumana akumana umase kutemba okutoba ninga mbuvo ninga twabanga zivubwa Yesu asweto bantu ninga mbuvo twaita kuti twapone na mpawo kamboswewo muno uminzi mputuponena pere umanzi kumanzi kunza manzi koti ndipenzi patiroko.
Kasiyawad is the main producer of vegetables in Livingston, and residents are now looking forward to a long-term solution for communal water points to sustain their irrigation efforts. Gabriel Josas Mova, Damo News, Southern Zambia.
Zambia Metal Recycling Association has raised concern over what it describes as fair targeting of licensed scrap metal dealers in the country's broader effort to combat infrastructure vandalism. This unfair targeting, and while speaking at the stakeholders meeting held in Lusaka Central Police Association spokesperson Stanley Kambindu did claim that law enforcement officers often implicate scrap metal business in theft cases without conducting thorough investigations. Chairperson Patrick Songa added that the industry plays a significant role in the secular economy, and warned that ongoing harassment could deter legitimate investors and undermine the sector's contribution to job creation and waste reduction. However, police have dismissed the allegations of misconduct. Chief Inspector Bonston Ziba from the Criminal Investigations Department stated that all search operations are conducted lawfully and based on actionable intelligence. The scrap metal trade, a multi-million kwacha industry in Zambia, is often caught in crosshairs of anti-vandalism efforts due to its proximity to stolen utility infrastructure, raising concerns over how to balance enforcement with business rights.
As vandalism and metal theft are becoming common topics of discussion in Livingston District, southern Zambia, the police are intensifying their efforts to combat these crimes. One of the strategies being employed is engagement between the police and scrap metal dealers in an attempt to address the rising number of theft cases. Recently, Zambia's power utility company ZESCO reported an increase, with 30 incidents of theft occurring in March alone. However, many scrap metal dealers feel they are being unfairly targeted for crimes they did not commit.
So when it is seen that police come and surround my home, do their search, come out empty, the perception will remain, and that perception is in the negative. So it will not augur well, first and foremost, with the community members. They will look me in the bad light.
We all suffer. Them, they might be saying they are losing, but also we are losing because our businesses depend in their power. But if we are interrupted because you have taken a certain cable, one from your neighborhood, even yourself will be affected the next day in your operations.
According to Chapter 409 of the Scrap Metal Dealers Act of Zambia, police are authorized to search the premises of dealers during an investigation. Dealers are required to allow any police officer to enter their premise of business or any area used as a scrap metal store and to inspect their records upon request.
But perhaps one thing that we must endure a bit is that when we inspect scrap here, we don't know what happens along the way. Whether you have stopped and you have unpacked. This is the reason why we have made sure that we are inspecting in all places that we have prescribed along the way before you reach. So the best, if you are clean, that's not a problem.
During the discussions, many scrap metal dealers expressed a lack of awareness regarding key metals regulated by institutions, indicating a need for future familiarization engagements. Gabriel Josas Mova, Damo News, Southern Zambia.
That's some of the stories that are making headlines. But before we let you go, let's take a look at the kwacha's performance on the international market. Those were your money markets. Let's now see the Kwacha's performance as regards to a particular item. What we'll be looking at this evening is two items, and we'll start off first with safety boots. These are going to cost you somewhere around 1,324.22 as you go and purchase those wherever you get them from. And our second item is still in about the hardware store that you will be finding them. Let's take a look at our second item this evening. These are 12 pieces of PVC traffic safety cones, and this will cost about 2,768.92 kwacha. Obviously, this is brought to you by Zambia National Building Society. That's as far as the Kwacha's performance. Let's take a look at our commodity prices and see how much you'll be purchasing those when you go out to shop. Food items are first 1 kg of beef at 100 kwacha, 5 kg of makonde rice, 160 kwacha is the lowest you can get that from. 5 liters of cooking oil, an average of 300 kwacha, and you also have 25 kg of breakfast mini meal between 373 and 390 kwacha. Your non-food items look a little something like this. This is how much you'll be purchasing them when you go out to shop. Your non-food items are as follows: 10 rolls of toilet paper, 85 kwacha, 500 grams of washing powder, 40 kwacha is the lowest you can get those. A bar of bathing soap between 19 kwacha and 29 kwacha. We'll close it off with our liquid hand wash between 45 kwacha and 50 kwacha for 750 mils. These altogether are your commodity prices. And that brings us to the end of our business news. Thank you so much for tuning in. And you could get interactive with us on our social media platforms. That's Diamond TV Zambia, Diamond TV Online on Facebook, and Diamond TV Zambia on our YouTube page. My name is Tapongoma. Thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the viewing.
Business News was brought to you by Zambia Industrial Commercial Bank. Zambia Industrial Commercial Bank, making tomorrow possible.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us on the news desk. Let's proceed with the rest of it. The wife of former Petoke Member of Parliament Emmanuel J. Banda, Charlie Lombe, along with 5 law enforcement officers, have been found with a case to answer for allegedly aiding Banda's escape from lawful custody. Chipata Principal Resident Magistrate Boniface Mwala ruled that the prosecution presented sufficient evidence to warrant the accused to enter their defense. Those facing charges include Lombe, 2 police officers, Mfungwe Phineas and Kabole Benson, and 3 correctional service warders, Sakala Moses, Nathan Mbao, and Musa Spider Zulu. They are charged with aiding a prisoner to escape, contrary to Section 120, Chapter 87 of the laws of Zambia. The case has been adjourned to the 5th of June and the 6th for commencement of defense.
In a much-anticipated ruling, the Chipata Magistrate Court has found 5 law enforcement officers and the wife of former Petoke Member of Parliament, Emmanuel J. Banda Lombechali, with a case to answer for aiding Emmanuel J. Banda to escape from lawful custody. Chipata Principal Resident Magistrate Boniface Mwala delivered the ruling that the prosecution presented enough evidence to place all 6 accused on defense. Charlie Lombe, 2 police officers, Mfungwe Phineas and Kambole Benson, 3 correctional service prison warders, Sakala Moses, Nathan Mbao, and the Musa Spider Zulu are facing the offense of aiding a prisoner to escape, contrary to Section 120, Chapter 87 of the laws of Zambia. The court was convinced that the prosecution successfully proved 4 critical elements. The first element is that Emmanuel J. Banda was legally detained. He escaped from lawful custody. The accused persons actively helped him free, and that the accused persons knew exactly what they were doing. From the written submissions, the defense lawyers argued that the state failed to fully prove the last 2 elements, but the court disagreed citing a landmark case of the People versus Winter Kanonkwera and Robert Tayabonga, which states that even if just one key element is proven, the accused must answer to the charges. The state made the prosecution. The matter has since been adjourned to June 5th and 6th for the accused to start their defense. Samuel Sylvester Kwawe, Diamond News, Eastern Zambia.
Moving on, Vice President Nalolo Lumango says Zambia is eager to strengthen educational ties with China, particularly through the use of artificial intelligence, AI, to enhance service delivery and contribute to a shared future. Speaking at the inaugural Africa-China People-to-People dialogue hosted by the African Union's Economic, Social and Cultural Council in Lusaka, Vice President Nalolo Lumango disclosed that sustainable development must include shared values, cultural understanding and grassroots collaboration. Mrs. Nalolo Lumango has further noted that Africa and China share a deep bond rooted in mutual respect, shared aspirations and a win-win approach to cooperation. Meanwhile, China Network for International Exchange Vice President Lin Jun said the mutual achievements and shared development between China and Africa vividly demonstrate the solidarity and cooperation of the Global South.
The inaugural Africa-China People-to-People dialogue hosted by the African Union's ECOSOC has officially opened in Lusaka. The dialogue has brought together voices from across the continent and China with strong calls to make the Africa-China relationship more inclusive, culturally grounded, and responsive to the needs of the ordinary citizens. Zambia's Vice President Nalolo Lumango made a strong The inaugural Africa-China People-to-People dialogue hosted by the African Union's ECOSOC has officially opened in Lusaka. The dialogue has brought together voices from across the continent and China with strong calls to make the Africa-China relationship more inclusive, culturally grounded, and responsive to the needs of the ordinary citizens. Zambia's Vice President Nalolo Lumango made a strong appeal for Africa-China relations to trickle down to the grassroots level and directly impact the lives of the people.
Africa and China share a strong bond that transcends geography. As much as government-to-government engagements have laid a solid foundation, the true strength of our partnership lies in the people-to-people connections.
The Vice President also disclosed that our government is eager to strengthen educational ties with China, particularly through the use of artificial intelligence to improve service delivery and build a shared future.
Africa, and particularly my country Zambia, would be more than willing to enhance cooperation between our educational institutions. This cooperation will not only be to learn from each other, but also to solicit Chinese expertise to modernize the education system in Africa, especially with the advent of AI. Mr. John, AI, artificial intelligence.
Earlier, Vice President of the China Network for International Exchange, Lin Jun, highlighted that the mutual achievements between China and Africa reflect the solidarity and cooperation of the Global South.
Stay true to our cooperative vision, reject false narratives such as the debt trap, and firmly promote openness, inclusiveness, and the building of a community with a shared future for humankind.
We are convinced what to have more impact and live up to expectations. The partnership between China and Africa must develop at the people's level.
Zimbabwean ambassador to Zambia and chair of the African ambassadors, Charity Charamba, reaffirmed ECOSOC's commitment to promoting investments that uplift local economies while honoring the dignity and aspirations of African communities. The dialogue marks a pivotal step in deepening Africa-China relations through collaboration, innovation, and stronger people-to-people ties. Taras Chanyo, News.
Residents of Zesko Kalundu in Chilanga district are calling on authorities to address the growing health risk posed by fish harvested from stagnant flood water pools. The fish caught by both children and adults from debris-filled contaminated rainwater pools is being sold within the community at prices ranging from 5 kwacha per cup to 50 kwacha per basin, depending on size. Concerned residents warn that the fish may be unsafe for consumption as the pools often contain waste and runoff. Despite visible signs of contamination, demand remains high among unsuspecting consumers due to affordability.
Although the water levels in these dambos are low, in Chilanga District's Zesko Kalundu, residents are concerned over a growing public health emergency of fish being harvested from stagnant flood waters and sold for consumption. Following heavy rains, the low-lying community is left with dambos, shallow, murky pools of water where locals, including children, wade in to catch fish. As this young boy explains his daily routine. But sometimes in a day. But behind the bargain lies a threat. These dambos, often filled with debris and contaminated with waste, pose a serious health risk. Yet many consumers remain unaware of the dangers they are buying into, hence calling for intervention. Personally, I have bought some fish from the people that harvest this fish from dambos, and I've eaten them. They've been affordable. However, these dambos are not safe for our children. We really hope a government can come in and sink these dambos, because they're really a public threat and a hazard to all of us. We don't even leave the house for fear of children having to play in them and perhaps even lose their lives. We really hope they are worked on them. Therefore, concerned residents are now calling on authorities to intervene by draining the stagnant water and finding lasting solutions to the recurring flood problem before contaminated fish ends up costing lives. Elfie Mwale Shampande, Diamond News.
We take another break. When we get back, we continue with the rest of the news desk. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us on the news desk. Let's proceed with the rest of it. The opposition leadership movement has called on the government to engage in broader national consultations before proceeding with proposed constitutional amendments. Speaking at a press briefing in Lusaka, leadership movement president Dr. Richard Silumbe cautioned against rushing the process. And he did say this, and saying against rushing the process, stressing that constitutional reforms is not an emergency and should be handled with public input and transparency. Dr. Silumbe also noted that Zambia is currently grappling with severe economic challenges, including a high cost of living and growing unemployment levels. He urged the government to focus on improving citizens' welfare before pursuing constitutional changes. President Hakainde Hichilema has proposed amending the constitution, but critics, including Dr. Silumbe, argue that such a process should be deferred until after the 2026 general elections to avoid politicization.
I believe that the constitution amendment should not be taking place today. The timing is wrong. The UPND government has a mandate given by the Zambian people based on the promises that they gave the Zambian people. Among the promises was to reduce the cost of fuel, to reduce the cost of meal, to provide more jobs to the young people, to ensure that the dollar in relation to a kwacha becomes affordable. In short, to reduce the value of the dollar. But all those things, after 4 years of being in power, have never been delivered to the Zambian people. And now they want the Zambian people to believe that only the constitutional amendment is going to guarantee those promises. As leadership movement, we say no to the constitutional amendment, and we outrightly reject the process of amendments until it is widely consulted, and we ensure that every Zambian understands and have a stake in each and every point that needs to be changed.
Moving on, residents of Nalolo district have expressed deep concern over continued delays in the disbursement of social cash transfer funds, with some claiming they have gone several months without receiving the crucial support. The affected beneficiaries, many of them elderly persons with disabilities or living in extreme poverty, say the delay has worsened their living conditions, leaving them unable to meet basic needs such as food and medical care. Caregivers of children with special needs say they are equally struggling to provide for their dependents due to the halted payments. The residents are calling on the relevant authorities to expedite the disbursement process, warning that further delays will continue to endanger the welfare of the most vulnerable.
The residents of Nalolo district have raised concerns over the prolonged delay in the disbursement of social cash transfer funds, with some reporting they have gone for over 3 months without receiving the crucial financial assistance. With a population of approximately 73,645, among those affected are women who care for children living with special needs and rely heavily on the grant to provide for their basic needs.
Ninani mwana wa 2008 wa mshimani azamai abuleli aezi kulovalafela.
I have a 17-year-old son who can't talk, sit or walk. I used to buy diapers and special food with that money. Now I have to beg from neighbors, and sometimes we go to sleep hungry. I have lost count of how many months he hasn't gotten paid. I need help. My mom is old and my dad is late, said Mrs. Omakamui. Another caregiver, Kasanga Nasilele, echoed similar frustrations. My child has similar challenges. He can't talk, walk or sit. The money helps me to buy medicine and porridge for him. It's been months and no one is telling us what is happening. We are suffering in silence. I can't do business that requires me to leave home because no one will take care of him, she said. Mr. Mbangweta Sheba's outcry is different. It's that of not being given his full retirement package. We are not being given information on when exactly we'll receive our benefits. Each time we ask, they tell us that they are still making inquiries since 2020 when I retired. Should we die first before we could be given our benefits? So we asked the president himself to step into this matter. He said, community leaders and advocacy groups have called on relevant authorities to urgently address the delay and provide clear communication to beneficiaries. Efforts to get a response from the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services were still underway by press time. Reporting for Diamond News, Christine Mosole.
Moving on, residents of Butondo Township in Mufulira District, Copperbelt Province, are urging authorities to enforce licensing requirements for all motorbike operators and ensure strict adherence to traffic regulations. Angel Musakula, A concerned resident said many motorbike riders lack basic knowledge of traffic rules, posing a serious risk to public safety in the community. Echoing these concerns, Francis Ndolela criticized the reckless speeding of motorbikes in residential areas and expressed alarm that some operators appear to be underage and unfit to ride in public spaces. In response to recent incidents, police in Wutondo have temporarily suspended all motorbike operations in the area. This follows unruly behavior by some riders during the burial of a fellow operator who died in a road traffic accident.
Wutondo Township in Mfra District on the Copperbelt Province is witnessing increasing calls from its residents for urgent intervention regarding the operation of motorbikes in the area. Safety has become a paramount concern, prompting a strong appeal to relevant authorities to implement mandatory licensing for all motorbike operators.
Speed is unquestionable that speed tayenda buno mu community, meaning that bale posing a danger. Then the other one is abana bene bale fa kokubafa bayishibe nshila imo because ito bale chita operate ama motorbikes bafude bakwata ama licenses bafude bale fuala ama helmets kwa safety so that in future na line accident ya chitike imbuti yaba avoided imbumwe uti waba spared.
Francis Ndolela, another concerned resident, has openly expressed his worry about the dangers posed by speeding motorbikes.
Kwena inichonde koma irapofu abana besu bifya kunsha ya mahonda ilo bali pamusebo ilo tubapere no muchinshi kubantu ilo bali pita sana ilo tuli mu mushumu tufile tulepera abakalamba muchinshi.
Meanwhile, one of the motorbike operators, Soilanji Chiza, had this to say.
Of course, those things should be implemented because for number one, for our own safety. That is very important because most of the time we ride these motorbikes without following the rules. So all those things should be taken account for.
The growing pressure from the residents of Tondo Township signals a clear need for authorities to address these concerns promptly. The call for licensing and adherence to traffic regulations represents a community-driven effort to foster a safer living environment and ensure that motorbike operations are conducted responsibly and within the bounds of the law. Rogan Labika, Damo News, Mofliram, Copperbelt Province.
We have come to the end of the news desk at 20 hours. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight's edition. Remember to utilize our social media platforms for you to be able to catch up on these and some news items, as well as our website. That's diamondtvzambia.com. My name is Justin Malenga. Enjoy the rest of the evening.